Well, the Opinion Maker show this week is highlighting on-farm safety, not about regulations, but how do we normalise a culture around it? As we did with the Make It Click seatbelt campaign in cars, we subconsciously put on our seatbelt in our vehicles when we hit on the road. Why is a tractor, a side-by-side or a truck on farm any different? Now, on our panel today, we have two gentlemen who have had experiences, both from a family farming situation and also a larger corporate scenario, one in Wairarapa and one in Canterbury. Daniel Hansen has farmed all his life, and like many farmers, family is why he farms, and farm safety is deeply important to him after a close call with an on-farm accident that he's so grateful he had his helmet and his seatbelt on. You all know Daniel and his wife who were behind the Rapper feed run. That was the feed going to Hawke's Bay from gathering baleage from around the Wairarapa to send to farmers in need battling with drought. Also on the panel, Align Farms Chief Executive Rhys Roberts. Now, Align Farms put social and environmental responsibilities at the forefront of their commercial activities. Of course, aligning with nature, but also alongside that, the extremely important is the well-being of the large group of agricultural workers that Rhys and his team represent. Rhys has also had a close call when a worker was caught inside a silage grab and was lucky to survive. Rhys will share his observations more about that, but the whole point of this panel is to try and find some form of solution to get us on a path of normalising on-farm safety. Daniel and Rhys join us now. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us here.
Now, Dan, let's start with you and this particular accident that you had that was quite life-changing, I would imagine, and a bit of a shake to the appreciation of the tools that we have around us to use to keep us alive.
Absolutely. So when it was just a normal day, it was end of winter, and I was out mustering lambs to go and give them away, and I went up this track and came back down it, but when I went up I was like, that was a little bit wetish, but it's winter, so you get sort of used to that. And coming back down, the side-by-side, the weight of the side-by-side just sort of slid, and I tried to round a bit of a bend, and it just carried on sliding sideways and off the edge of the track and rolled 5 times. So that was, and then got to the bottom and undid my seatbelt, undid the net and walked away.
I do want to clarify, just following on from Karen Williams' son's incident where he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and there is that sentiment that if you are wearing a seatbelt, you get trapped in. What was it like when it was rolling? Did you feel safe inside it?
Yes, I did. I've looked back and gone over it in my head since, and I was on the downhill side. So if I didn't have my seatbelt on, I would have been crushed. From when it started sliding to when I got to the bottom was 10 seconds. So I would have had to have pushed my Labrador out of the way, and he was in the passenger side, and he's a decent weight, so and get through a net. So I didn't have time. It was impossible, in my opinion, to get away from that, and I was just pleased I was strapped in.
And Rhys, the example of your experience was with a team member that was very lucky to survive, caught inside a silage grab. There's a horrible scenario for both the people, the person involved, but also the people that are trying to keep everyone safe in that farm. Can you talk us through, from your perspective, that experience?
It certainly wasn't a great experience for any of our team. However, when we looked at our business and looked at our 30 team members, we probably looked at the quintessential millennial on his cell phone, probably having an accident, not too well experienced, both in their 50s, both ex-farm owners, being as a team for quite some time, having an accident, and never did we think that someone on a 500 hectare farm could get caught in the silage grab. However, it did happen to us. And effectively, one of the team members was behind a bale cutting the strings, and the driver closed the silage grab, and it went through his back and out of his stomach, and then he was lifted into the air. So there was really no winners in that whole process. However, what we did go back to was trying to work out, we've done a lot of learning since then. And we found that a lot of our accidents that do happen on farm happen when people aren't showing their, natural human tendencies. So it's either their last day at work or their first day back from work, or there's something bigger going on outside. So that's what we've really honed into to try and, in this particular accident, it was one of their first day back from about a month holiday. So, there's just that, we haven't built up that natural way that we want to work together as a team. So we're looking at non-negotiables and other ways now. So as I say, no winners from that accident. We never integrated the driver, who was the farm manager, back into the business. He just couldn't reintegrate back into the business. And the affected person was back within 5 weeks. So that was good.
Very scary, both of you. Dan, what's it been like sharing your story and the type of culture that you've noticed around you in the farming community?
So for the first, 8 months to a year, I was quite embarrassed about it, because that was something that, I didn't want to admit to. I was just grateful that Mark, my boss, he was hard. That was a non-negotiable for him, was helmets and seatbelts. It was, just the norm for us now.
Yeah, and I mean, the word embarrassed, it's also very hard when you're in your position, Rhys, with a larger corporate environment, to also deal with and move forward from these particular incidents in a way that is constructive as well.
Yes, certainly it was, it comes quite a shock to everyone. The first I actually heard about it was via the local newspaper. So that was an instant shock for myself around how do we gather the troops. Probably looking back, the way we dealt with it, we put a lot of support around the person who actually was in the injury. And to be fair, probably didn't wrap enough support around the other team member. And if we look back, that's an area that, when there's two people involved, it's not actually the person carrying the injury. Yes, they're a hyper important part of the team, but it's actually the support that we need to wrap around the other individual. So that was an area that we certainly need to work on, and that was one of the learnings we took out of it. But hard to avoid an accident like that. To be fair, like we can make a policy that says only one person loads silage bales into a silage stack or into a bale feeder, and that would solve the problem. However, that individual accident, really hard to avoid. Yeah, it happened.
Yeah. Dan, we're trying to talk through a strategy of how to normalise on-farm safety. As you said, that your boss, you're extremely grateful for the fact that was already implemented on-farm. But how was the process of getting to a point of culture of safety on the farm you're on?
So getting there, I guess Mark is very aware of the health and safety aspect, and so that's one of the number one things for him. So when I came here, that was just what you did, and for the first, 2 or 3 weeks, that was, I've got to put my seatbelt on, I've got to put my helmet on. But now, I guess normalising it is the easiest thing, because it's like getting in and out of your car. To go to the supermarket, you automatically put your seatbelt on. I'll go up to the workshop, so automatically helmet, seatbelt, net, and I'm off. That, for all of us, that's just normal now.
Mark had some connection to an incident that made him specifically be very diligent around on-farm safety?
I don't think so, not that I'm aware of. The main change was when they bought a farm down the road and had to put a helmet on to go down the road. So then it just became a helmet all the time, and it's just progressed into then having staff. So having to make sure his staff's safe, and in this respect, it saved my life, and it just reinforces that for all of us.
Ryan, Rhys, it's interesting the amount of, sort of box ticking exercises, larger corporate farms can do to encourage that. But we've sort of been talking a lot about fatigue and well-being and wrapping support around people. In all your learnings in your particular leadership position, what are the fundamentals that people can take personal responsibility to keep themselves safe and not just rely on the infrastructure of safety around them?
Yeah, certainly. I remember post-accident, we looked at, we talked to all our staff and asked them what was the key, what do you want to get out of every job or every task you undertake? And a lot of them answered by, I wanted to get the job done quickly, or I wanted to complete the task and keep the boss happy, or whatever it may have been. However, the fundamental of it was actually about getting them home safe, or keeping themselves safe. So they had a responsibility to themselves. So that's when we introduced what we call the Me and I innovation, which effectively stands for that you are the most important part of this team and this job. And it stands for minimise, eliminate, or innovate. So it's when they take a job, they first sit back and they say, hey, look, what is the most outcome? It's me being home safe tonight. So can I minimise this issue, or can I eliminate the risk, or do I need to innovate? So we're trying to bring that innovation into health and safety. One area that has stemmed from that is we've now created we looked at probably work hours and a fatigue perspective, and making sure that people are showing their natural tendency at work. So they want to be there and they want to keep themselves safe. So we now have an online platform where there's effectively no rosters in our business, and the day split into 3 different shifts, and the staff choose, or the team chooses which shifts they want to do. So if they want to do 1 shift that day, they do 1 shift. If they want to do 3, they do 3. So it's really around making sure we've got teams that want to be there. They also they've refreshed and not fatigued, and they're going to get the job done, and they're not working very long hours. And the other one is now they've got more time to re-engage in the community. And I always have a joke to the team members that going out with your friends on a Friday night and having a good time is actually going to keep you safe at work, because you're actually showing natural tendencies at work. When you block yourself away, these are generally when you're at work and you generally either don't want to be there. So I think it's a lot around the health part. A lot of people look at safety, the safety aspect, but I'd probably look at the health part as just as critical, if not more critical, making sure we've got the right people doing the right job at the right time. So that's probably where we've gone as a business. There's certainly no immunity on offer when it comes to health and safety. You can spend all the money you like, but it won't keep people safe. So that's probably where we've gone down. We've really focused on how do we keep people refreshed and active in our business.
Do you know what I absolutely love is when you see more dairy farmers playing rugby on Saturdays.
No, I certainly agree, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we've got the fundamentals right, why not? It shouldn't be an excuse letting work get in the way of the rest of your life. Dan, I want to talk about, the responsibility of those coming on farm and how things have changed considerably. We're going to be speaking to Chief Executive Ryan Higgs from Onsider Technology, which is a check-in tool. But I just sort of, in your farming career, how much you've seen it changed from when you first started?
So I guess looking back, we never had 4-wheelers at the home farm. It was all horse or ute, and there was no seatbelts, no helmets. And then I moved to a 4-wheeler. I had a helmet but never wore it. Wore it on the road occasionally, and then I guess that reflects on the industry as a whole. I think. And the fact that helmets are just sitting on the bike and they're there when you think when you're seen to need them. And obviously now we use them all the time. So people come on farm, they jump in the side by side. We'll have a FERT rep come with me. There's a helmet, and you wait for them. Seatbelt, net up. It's just standard. There's no negotiation with that. And I think that's where the industry needs to go. People say, "Oh, but I'm only going across the paddock to open a gate," and then you have the instance like Tom, where there was a bull hole in the middle of the paddock. Well, that's where we've just got to get into the normalisation of making it click all the time. A helmet. After that accident, I had a big crack in the back of my helmet. I'd hate to know what would have happened to my head. So that's where I see it going.
Yeah. Rhys, when it comes to what you said back originally was to do with, it was the older experienced farm workers that caught you off guard, thinking, but how unconscious we become to something we see every single day. How do we avoid that when, the assessment of hazards is done once at the start, but on checking ourselves?
Yeah, well, I think it's, you're right. It did catch us off guard, and we certainly have risk assessments of every job we take, and we have a natural bias to what we think is the most unsafe practices on farm. So effectively, everything we do on farm isn't safe at the end of the day. Like, we could make it safe, but there is an element of hazard involved with every job we undertake in the farm. That's natural farming. So I guess it starts with the culture of the team and making sure that we're embedding, the basic principles into them around helmets and safety and speed. And then as a business, you can take it at next level, like all our quads, for example, have speed limiters and, anti-rollover protection. So I think you just build it from the basic core culture of your business, and then you start looking at where your risk coming from. An area that I don't think is done very well in farming is normalising the data and then getting that data available. So, what gets measured gets managed. If I want to change any result on any of my properties, I just start measuring the data, and then within a week I have management change across the board. No one likes to be at the bottom. So I think that an area that we don't do well is you can go to any discussion group in any farming business and talk about milk solids and talk about live weight per hectare. But very rarely do you hear about, lost time injury frequency or any of the above. And I think that's really where we need the next step that we need to take safety in New Zealand is, normalising what data we need to collect, and then getting that into the hands of everyone so they can make informed decisions around what is actually causing the issues. Is it motorbikes, or do we just assume it's motorbikes? It could be something completely different. In our business, we looked at any vehicles was where our key risk was, but livestock pose an issue, all of the above. So I would like to see more normalisation of data personally, and then having that readily available would be a critical step for myself.
That's a very valid point about having those measurement metrics that we talk about and comparability across operations as well. Dan, what would you like to see change in New Zealand's culture around on-farm safety?
Just that wearing a seatbelt and your helmet is normal. And when like we go to discussion group and some don't wear helmets and some do, well, it's almost like it needs to be said, you have to wear a helmet, or buckle up, you're on someone else's property. And then I guess that just makes it normal for that, and it makes it sort of carry on farm potentially.
Thank
I
you.
guess just trying to normalise that whole thing.
Absolutely. Totally valid points. I certainly have been involved, in filming on farms, and this is 10 years ago, and they're sort of getting the cobwebs out of the helmets because the film crew were there. And I certainly have noticed over the last 10 years how much that has changed. Going onto a farm now is certainly a different experience, and so it should be.
A guy said to me the other day, the problem with the seatbelts on side-by-sides is that when you put this, make it click in, there's often mud and stuff in there. And I straight away just said, well, if you use it all the time, you don't have that issue. And he was quite taken back, I think, by that. But it's a fair comment. If you use it, it doesn't get filled with stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
If you go back 5 to 10 years ago with health and safety, every time someone come onto your farm about health and safety, it was all about document checking. Like, where's your documents? We need to check this. So, a large majority of farms now have the documentation down packed. So I think it's when we do have these people going on farms, it's no longer is it about document checking. It's actually getting out there, checking machinery and making that stuff unacceptable anymore. Like, it's we made not having any documents unacceptable in farming, and I think we did very well at that. But now we need to take it to the next level and say, hey, look, helmets, it's unacceptable. It's a non-negotiable. Speed, it's a non-negotiable, and actually, forcing everyone as a whole to come up. We did it well with document checking. in my view. I think, and the forestry industry did very well out of that too. So I think it's around, when we're on farm, having the confidence to speak out about how do we step change this business around, documents don't save life, arse covering doesn't save lives. What actually saves lives is actually, being diligent around our people. So.
Totally agree, 100%, that we're moving on to the next phase of this. As you said, we've ticked that first box, which was the box that needed ticking in terms of creating some form of industry standard, and now it's about non-negotiables to keep people alive and physical, tangible tools that we can do on farm. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on this Opinion Maker show, highlighting normalising on-farm safety. Glen Eden Farms Stock Manager Dan Hansen from the Wairarapa, and Line Farms Chief Executive Rhys Roberts.